welcome everyone here tonight. We're going to go ahead and start our meeting. Would you please take roll?
Ms. Atkins?
Here.
Mr. Hendricks?
Here.
Mr. Houston?
Here.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Here.
Mr. Stoffer? Mr. Wyledge?
Here.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the November 15th, 2021 agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Vote please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Vote please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. Commendation and good news.
That's real quick before we see what Dave has. Just, of course, excitement in the air has a lot to do with our football team. And you know, I don't want to, I think some people, sometimes when especially a superintendent wants to talk about something like that, they may want to downplay it a little bit and say, hey, let's, you know, realize school is about school. It most definitely is about school, but it's also about community. And, you know, we've had other state accomplishments too, swimmers going to state. You know, I'm sure that as we go through the year, we'll have more, our band program doing well, our choirs, all these things are good, but it's, you know, you look for every opportunity. I always call it every inch that you can find that provides some unity within community. Not to be too cheesy there, but there is just something really special about watching a community rally around kids. And that's what you have with an opportunity like a football team going to play a state championship and win it all. You get to look around and see people rallying around kids, which is what we do, what we're all about. And it's just it's a special time, and I hope we can all kind of latch on to it and appreciate it and celebrate, regardless of what the outcome is. You know, talking to Coach Camrad, of course, couldn't get through an email without him saying, now we have to win it all. You know, yeah, but you really don't. I mean, it's a huge accomplishment regardless, and we sure want to have that state title. But it's, you know, as I shared with him, and he didn't need me to tell him this in any way, shape, or form, but I think it's worth mentioning. Like so many other things, I've been around this long enough to know that you don't end up with kids contending for a state title by accident. Doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It takes dedication. It takes love for the kids that you're nurturing and showing the ropes and moving along the way. And it takes a certain style of leadership and even coaching. And I think all of those ingredients have been present in the past number of years, and you know, we've just kind of stair-stepped into now a state championship game. So it's exciting. I just congratulate, of course, most importantly, all the players, but our coaches and all the staff contributing, and all the teachers who teach these kids. We're rallying around kids, and it's a beautiful thing. So, Dave, any other points? Okay. We're like that a lot.
I was going to, of course, point to the Thursday night's game as a celebration for us. And the swimmers last weekend did exceptionally well. You know, we can't say enough good about that. All-State Band and All-State Choir, we've got 10 kids going to All-State this coming weekend for band and choir also, which is a great accomplishment. And then I would like Dr. Knos to reflect on a few of these photos that I have. You want to do that? Where was this taken?
Are you setting me up, Dave?
I am. This is a photo from a little event that Dr. Knost and Joe Vincho and Joel went to about a week ago.
You know, I didn't have that vantage point, and it looks different. Yes, I mean, I obviously spoke a lot to that prior to the trip there, and you know, the high school being named a National Blue Ribbon. I said some of the same things, not to be redundant, but those things don't happen by accident. But it was a, you know, I've had the honor of being at that celebration in the past with other schools, and it never gets old. And you know, I don't think they would mind me telling you, part of the enjoyment was very limited who could attend because of COVID. It's always limited because they don't want a huge crowd in a room, but it was very limited this year. And of course, Dr. Beinhoff and Mr. Van Chettel appropriately went, and they probably didn't realize how much I enjoyed just observing them. I mean, they were walking 3 feet off the ground everywhere we went, and you know, I kind of joked with them. I told them in advance, having been to this, that the organizer encourages, when you're called across the stage, to dance. And I didn't give them an easy way out by saying early on that, you know, you don't really have to. I told them that, you know, be prepared. And then I got nervous because right before we were to go up, Dr. Beinhoff was actually rehearsing his sprinkler. And I thought, oh my goodness. So I said, you know, when you get this award and you have somebody in your group that's really a good dancer, then it's a good thing to dance across the stage because people focus on the really good dancer. But when our focal point is our principal wanting to do a sprinkler, I think we ought to gracefully walk across the stage, as you all who watched saw that we just gracefully walked across the stage. But anyway, kudos to so many who have been a part of that process. And yeah, thanks, Dave. I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing it up, but it was wonderful.
And I have one other thing to say, and that's that it really is about the kids. This is Desiree Jensen's little Dawson. She was born yesterday. For those of you that don't know, Desiree's our administrative intern at Kraft. And this is really what it's all about. So,
That's where it all starts.
Definitely.
That's all we have.
Yes, I was watching the ceremony, and I just happened to do a screenshot with your camera up like this, or your phone up like this.
Do a selfie?
You were doing your selfie, right? And so that was really nice to watch. I mean, to see and watch. It was really great.
Truth be told, I'll ask our students to ignore this next comment. Ask Tim not to put it in print. You're not supposed to do selfies.
Oh.
But we noticed the schools that tried were told not to because they would get their official picture taken first, and then they would take the selfie, and they'd say, no, you need to get off the stage so the next one's going on. So I told Dr. Beinhoff and Mr. Van Chettel, as soon as we walk up, I'm just going to lift it up, and we're going to get it. So you can, and they were happy. They were fine with it. Nobody yelled at us. But you can see in the picture that the organizer, Abba, who organizes this every year, she's smiling but refusing to look at my cameras. Had to do a selfie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone else? Commendation and good news? Okay. Comments and suggestions. This is the portion of our agenda that anyone can address the board from the audience, or if we have anyone online, we also have been taking comments from anyone who wants to type in. Nothing? Okay. We'll go on then to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a second. This is the updated personnel sheet?
there were no
No
changes.
changes, okay. And then also, DK gave us a sheet for a fundraiser.
Fundraiser.
Is there any discussion? Vote please.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes. Reports, 6.01, COVID updates.
Yes, so, let me get my chart up here. So we are still, as we know, anybody paying attention to our weekly communications that our principals put out, which is now probably one of those things that was birthed out of COVID, but I think has been really appreciated by the community and the parents, that the principals are checking in with, actually, COVID has became a very small portion of what their communications have been. But we continue to monitor weekly. We continue with, paying attention to that 3% rolling 3-day average that we assess on the end of each week. And I just want to be honest and candid. We are noticing things going back in the wrong direction. We see that kind of throughout the country. We definitely see it in Iowa. If you look at the large map, what I call the heat map of all the counties in the country, there's been a lot of red, which is high rates of positivity. And for a while there, in the Midwest and South, in the warmer climates, you were starting to see tan, yellow, and blue being a very good, basically non-existent. And you saw that coming up through Missouri quite a bit, and it was starting to happen in Iowa. Now Iowa's all red again, and the 7-day average positivity rate is right now 22.01%. That was today. We haven't been that high in the state of Iowa. Roll back here. Well, since before I was keeping track of that 7-day average from that's put out on the CDC's website. Our 14-day local average that's monitored by Iowa Department of Public Health for the last week has been at 15.4%, and in the previous 7 days there were 200 new positive infections in Pottawatomie County. Good news is, I always knock on wood, is that we're not seeing, some kind of a very large surge in our internal numbers. They are going up, but still on the minor side of things. We currently have a total of 11 positives throughout the district in our students and our staff. We had a couple of weeks there where we had some buildings that were at 0 for a couple weeks in a row. We are now back to having positive cases in all of our buildings. And Andrea and I were talking today about this data, and I can scroll all the way back to the beginning of November last year, and we're coming up on our most challenging time a year ago. In fact, November 20th of 2020 was our most significant issue yet with COVID, when we had 44 positives throughout the district, positivity rates of about 22%. So that's kind of similar. The difference being, we don't quarantine students. When we had those rates before, we were quarantining 213 students. Today, and we don't technically quarantine them, but there are parents who choose to do that, choose to keep their children home. But this morning anyway, we had 5 that were quarantined due to exposure. So we call those AB2s in our attendance, as Dave set up. AB3s are ones that are out because they have COVID. AB2s are ones out because they're quarantining. So not, I definitely still think that's good news. I'm not saying anything to alarm anyone. We still, in each of our buildings, are comfortably below that 3%. And we do have a bit of a break coming up. That always helps. That saved us last year, by the way, because right before Thanksgiving, we were hanging on by a thread with, sub shortages and teachers being out, and just stressful times, and a lot of kids, our attendance was so low because of the quarantines and because of the positive infections. And we made it to Thanksgiving, and we got a little bit of a boost from that break, and when we came back, we kind of just limped along in December without going any direction, just kind of plateaued, and then in January things started getting better. We had a little bit of the peak in April, and then went back down. We've been through that a few times. So with any luck, what we can hope is that this, this, what seems to be a trend going back upwards in the positives, in a bad way, we can hope that it's maybe short-lived or doesn't go that high, and that we continue to have low numbers in our schools. But that's why we monitor every day to make sure we don't have something significant sneaking up on us. But I do look forward to the fact that we get a little bit of a break next week. And so that's where we're at with our COVID numbers right now.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Next report, 6.02, superintendent search update. And I just want to go over, we did hire Grunmeyer Services to be our superintendent search firm. We did, at the last meeting, we went ahead and decided on our time schedule, which would be the stakeholder survey is going on right now. I would like to encourage anyone who knows someone who hasn't filled it out yet, or just get the word out. I think another social media, emails, that will be going out again to remind, looking at this, what we have right now compared to 3 years ago, we are up with our numbers already. I believe one of the schools hasn't done, has the high school done? Okay. And, but support staff were up a few, teachers were up a few, admin were down a few, and parents were up almost 100. It's about 82 that we're up right now compared to 3 years ago. And school board members and community is about the same. So if we can just get people to fill out that survey, that would be great. It doesn't take too long. So that will close on Friday, the 19th, and then the application period will start for superintendents to get their applications in. That will run November 19th through January 2nd. And then on the 10th, we have a regular board meeting, but then we'll go into closed session to review all the applicants. And then on January 17th, we'll have a screening interviews where we will choose around eight applicants to do like a video screening, video interview, and then we'll have the formal interviews with the finalists on January 24th. Hopefully we won't need the snow day. And so right now, between now and then, if you will need to get people to be on the committees for the formal interviews, so just start thinking names and we'll get in touch with the schools. And so if anyone knows of anyone that would be willing to be on, but that's not until January 24th would be the formal interviews. So that's all I have. Just I'm looking forward to seeing what our results are from the survey. And if you know of anyone, have them get it done. Okay? Does anyone have any questions? Because we won't see Grunmeyer Services here until we review the applicants. So if you have any questions, you can contact Trent directly or let me know, and we'll get the answers. Okay. Now we'll go on to discussion items. 7.01 SBRC application.
School Budget Review Committee, and I'm going to turn this over to Andrea. And I will point out, to be very clear, so you're prepared for this, even though she's gonna do the same thing, but we actually have 4 pieces of action when we get to this as an action item later, built within this, so 4 motions will need to be made, Bob.
So there are 4 applications that we are looking to submit to the SBRC. The first one is excess LEP costs for 2020 and 2021 costs. So that one is for $1,464.92. The second one is for increasing enrollment. So this is based on the enrollments between last year and this year's on for the count that we're providing for. So this one is for $134,422. The open enrollment out is also based on the count difference between last year and this year. So this one is for $390,459. And the third one is ELL beyond 5 years. So any student that we are providing those services for beyond the 5 years at $27,679. And like always, this is not actually cash. It is just the spending authority, but we can look at levying for the cash if we do need the cash later. So we will need a motion for all 4 of these applications to go to the SBRC for approval. Are there any
Andrea would be
questions?
the right one to ask your questions to, if you have any now.
Do we see that we're going to be needing these funds? I mean, are we going to be using them? This is,
From a cash standpoint, we are very financially stable with the cash. Obviously, with authority, we would like to have any spending authority that we can possibly have.
Correct.
So the nice thing that helps out with on the open enrollment side is that any of the funds that we're paying out, we have that authority now versus the year in the rears funding. So
Okay.
that is what that is for.
and the numbers in parentheses, like the ELL beyond 5 years, 18, we have 18 students?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a better presentation than a year ago.
Yes.
I don't mean that against Andrea. I mean, the information that Andrea is providing, out of her hands, of course, is
better
better this
news.
year, yes.
Yes,
Very much
especially
so.
the increasing enrollment one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. 7.02, adult meal prices.
I'm going to share this information, and if Andrea has anything to add, or if you have any questions, she can help answer. But this is all relative to the USDA memorandum, SP 22, 2021. The adult meal price for fiscal year 22 should be $3.95. Currently, LC, the adult meal price is $3.85, and in order to stay in line with the USDA guidelines, we need to increase our adult lunch price by 10 cents as of January 1, 2022. A lot of folks don't realize that there are federal guidelines that drive what those prices are. That's not this board or this administration saying, let's add 10 cents to those meals. So we have to stay in line with those USDA guidelines. It behooves us to do so, and obviously January 1st is coming up. So anything to add to that, Andrea?
There's a minimum that they obviously set. Normally, we'd also go through a calculation for our student meal prices, but we are receiving all of those 100% funded this year, so we didn't need to do that process. So this is the only one that would need to change for this year.
Will it be a substantial jump if we end up having to pay, if the kids have to pay next year?
Normally it is, they figure it based on what your old rate was, so there's never really a substantial
okay.
one going forward.
I mean, not that, 20 or 30 cents is, but when you add it up, for some people, it
Yeah,
can be.
and the other thing that, one of the things that goes into the calculation of when they're figuring your prices is how financially sound your nutrition fund is.
Okay.
Ours is getting better throughout this, since the federal government is reimbursing us at a higher rate than what our students were paying prior.
Are there any other questions? All right, 7.03, 900 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the second read.
Yes, so this group of policies was brought to the board for a first read at the last meeting, and there are no changes to what's being brought to you in this second and final reading. Just to recap a couple of things that I pointed out last time in this group, there's, as usual, there's a lot of policies that we're keeping, but we are simply updating legal references and realigning, sometimes updating the language, even in titles. An example would be one of them that we, it's just really was outdated, but our old LC policy 90210 is titled Adaptation for the Handicapped. That in and of itself should make you realize how outdated that policy was. Not that the content of the policy was not accurate, it was still appropriate, but the wording, the legal references had evolved quite a bit. So we add the new version, which is Buildings and Sites Adaptation for Persons with Disabilities. That's an example, but there are no significant changes to any of these, and again, there are no changes after our discussion at the last meeting, and we're ready to move on with these for approval of this final read.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay with it, with those on the second read? All right. 7.04, 1000 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the second read.
This was just a small group of the 1000 series that I went ahead and brought to you last time for the first read, because the second group and the final group is what we're going to look at next on a first read. This is now the second reading for these. Again, nothing significant. There are just some reasons to update, some reasons to make our protocols and our practices a little bit more accurate to follow and to monitor. An example of that would be our ideas of distributing materials and printed materials. We had a policy, printed materials, and we're replacing that with one that refers to the distribution of materials, because materials aren't only printed anymore. In fact, rarely are they printed. But that also comes with a new regulation that really helps define the protocols of distributing materials. Keeping some significant policies, again, the examination of school district records, but as you know, there's been recent laws that have changed how school districts operate around those things, so it was appropriate to update accordingly to those new legal references, so we stay in line with state statutes and federal statutes when they apply. But again, nothing in any kind of a significant change or deletion or add, and there were no changes recommended or needed between the last read and this final read on this first set of 1000 series policies.
Does anyone have any questions on those on the second read? Good to go. All right. 7.05, the final 1000 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the first read.
I just want to say that again. This is after we began this with IASB doing a side-by-side review of all of our policies and making recommendations. That was accomplished in August, a year ago, this past August, and immediately in September we started reviewing and bringing policies, beginning with the 100 series, and this is the final chunk of policies. So technically it's not over tonight, but when you approve them on a second read at the next board meeting, we will have completed a very effective, very thorough review of our entire policy book, bringing it completely up to date, completely in line with all current statutes, and very much aligned to IASB, which is our, per this board, probably close to 2 years ago now, we determined that we would use IASB for our policy service provider, and reviews going forward annually of the appropriate series that we will review will be much more fluid system, as we are aligned to their recommended policies, both numerically, which we really didn't need to bring numerically our number changes to the board, but we just did because it made sense with the alignment of what we were doing. But it will definitely benefit my successor. I guarantee you, it will provide a sense of comfort for that person who comes in and realizes that that's set and pretty effectively ready to roll forward with a plan in place of monitoring. So anyway, that's long-winded about that, but it's exciting to know we're close to that big task being completed. This final set, again, I'm sorry to be redundant, there's nothing significantly changing. We are doing a lot of updating, again, with legal references. We do find things like we found all along, some things that are duplicated. That's what IASB helped us do. This LC policy 1003.1, participation in community activities, duplicated numerous times that they pointed out in other policies. So there's no need to have things like that there. A lot of keeps. You see the word keep going down a lot, and a lot of things replacing. You'll notice that, for instance, one delete is our policy. We had a community use of school facilities, and what we're trading that out for is a very similar policy, but updates to be community use of school facilities and equipment, which is very appropriate, considering what sometimes, if somebody uses this facility, they may not only be using the facility, but they may be using the technology as well. So that helps. And again, there's different schools of thought. I think when we went with IASB, the school of thought with IASB is that you don't have to have a policy about everything that you do, but it's good when you're challenged about how you're practicing, if you can point to the legal references that guide you in that way. So it's allowed us to do that. But again, mostly some keeps. We did add a few that I think are very important. You see those at the very bottom. We had some protocols about transporting students in private vehicles, but to have this very specific policy and to have our exhibit, which is the transportation request form, included and aligned with that. That was in a different place before and not really in policy. So this is first reading. We don't have to solve any issues or questions tonight, but between now and the next meeting, if there are any questions, send them to me and I'll talk with IASB and or if needed our own legal counsel and bring back any recommended changes or additional updates on the December 6th meeting.
Is there any questions or discussion on any of these policies on the first read?
The fourth bullet there, sorry, as you move away from it, It was written permission from the superintendent. Are we talking about kids at that point coming home from games? Is that,
The
are we gonna?
fourth bullet, what Dave has up.
Yeah, sorry, Dave, let me get to it. There it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that fourth bullet there, the parents, have given written permission, so is that gonna change the way, because I know that, like, if I was gonna bring Chloe home from a show choir competition, I just emailed,
right.
Whoever.
Well, that's written permission.
Okay.
It's memorialized permission.
Okay.
And as always, superintendents or superintendent's designee, that's either
Okay.
going to be the sponsor, the coach, or Mr. Dermody in
Okay.
high school settings. But also, to be clear, a lot of this came about, the reason we focused on this is because with our, it's not only what you're describing, but with our significant shortage of bus drivers, there have been some contests that we get to that day and transportation is telling me and Mr. Dermody that we have no way to get the kids, you know,
point A to point B.
who are bowling or who are, you know, going here, going there. And the backup that we work through our attorney and along with this IASB policy is that parents can give permission for other parents that are going. So not only, you know, in Chloe's situation, but if there were other students that I can go with, you know, Chloe's.
So I would let Jen drive my
Yes.
kids, okay.
Yes, that's what's also covered in this
Perfect.
policy. And as long as it's memorialized in some kind of a record, be it that an email or the form, the exhibit.
The form, okay.
That is being put in place that I've, you know, encouraged. And that exhibit is not a IASB exhibit. It's our legal counsel
Okay.
wrote that exhibit for us.
Perfect.
Again,
Just-
we had that, we rolled that out prior to getting to this series, but it was just kind of out there as a document we use, so this gives us an opportunity to adopt this recommended policy and
And
put
put it in
that
there.
in there as an exhibit underneath that policy.
Okay. Just making sure that it wasn't gonna be a huge
No,
upheaval for,
no, I don't think so, and I think Mr. Dermody has cleaned a lot of that up
okay,
in the last few years anyway, to make sure that, you know, kids aren't just going willy-nilly
back in the day
Wherever.
they did.
with whoever.
Yeah.
I did have a question on let's see if I can find it. Community use of school district facilities and equipment. That's renumbered to, well, it's 905.1. And then the application is now 905.1R4. Did we have an application?
Let me back up to that one, Doreen, I apologize.
Because the application was deleted, but it says
Right.
keep LC exhibit and renumber it. I just want to make sure I was following it.
Yeah, you want to make sure that the number's right.
Well,
Correct.
and then we still have an application. Is that online? Do they have where they can get an application if they do want to use the facility?
I saw it, it's there because I saw that, there it is, number one.
It's this one.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's the exhibit that goes with it. I do want to make sure what you're saying about what's the number on that one?
905.1 is the proposed policy.
because the one that's deleted used to be the actual form.
Application.
Right.
Application, and that's been deleted, but it's now in there, how to obtain the form.
Yeah, it puts that in the right place.
Okay,
But I'll double check on the numbering too, to make sure that we've got that right.
okay.
again, numbers, changing numbers isn't something we would normally
Correct.
bring to the board, but we've been doing that to show the alignment piece.
Right, right. Is there any other questions or discussion on those on the first read? And then, of course, if you see anything.
I guess just one of the things in this 905.1 that's, you know, has been somewhat of an issue is, you know, doors propped open and those kind of things. In no place do we really talk about that. And, you know, I'm not sure how the best way to handle that situation is, you know, because you hate for someone to have to stand at that door all the time, but, you know, many of our buildings aren't necessarily set up that they coordinate off any segment of the building that somebody might be trying to use. So if a door is propped open, you know, not only do you have the opportunity for those people that are using your facility to enter, but you open your building for somebody else to enter. So I'm not sure how we resolve that one.
Yeah, I think that, to be quite honest with you, that sits on my shoulders and sits on my successor's shoulders, because the bottom line is it just shouldn't happen. It becomes a convenience, whether it's, you know, I think what we see a lot of times is, you know, which is, I know it happens during school days too. You know, a teacher decides to do a nature walk out one door in the back to get some fresh air for a PE class or whatever, and that's hypothetical. I'm not stating an actual occurrence, but it's just real convenient to do that. And some of that also is fixed. I mean, there's been a lot of effort on Dave's part over the past number of years to continually get our key systems more universal, our card systems, which of course we're probably, I think, in a significantly better place than we used to be, but we continue to move in that direction. We're doing a lot of that with our new facilities. But the bottom line, Bob, is we just have to stay on. I have to stay on. Our principals who have to stay on. Nobody's intending to do anything wrong, and I know
no,
you're not suggesting that,
No, I'm
but
not
it,
suggesting, it just,
it's the
you
way
just
we.
drive by doors and they're
Yeah.
propped open and it causes me concern.
Yeah,
that-
and I do that too, and when I see it, I shut them. And sometimes that means I unintentionally create an inconvenience for somebody who has to go around to a different way to buzz in or what have you. So, I started to say that, you know, you'll see that also on Saturdays, sometimes for people who are using our facilities, because they, you know, they want to, let's just say they use the middle school multi-purpose room. Well, it's a whole lot easier to just go prop those doors open and let people park and come in there than it is, but we probably didn't unlock those doors for whoever that group may be. Again, hypothetical situation, but we just have to stay on it. And that's not an excuse or a cop-out. It's just something that I want you to know and everybody to know publicly. It's just not a practice that can be acceptable. It can't be acceptable to me, and it can't be acceptable to our principals. And knowing that nobody's doing something to intend harm, but it's pardon the pun, but an old school practice that when all of us were probably growing up, we didn't even lock doors in schools. You know, we went out, school was open, you went out whatever door was closest and you came back in that door. So I think we've moved in the right direction, but you're exactly correct. It's not perfect, but that would be more of a protocol and a practice administratively than it would be a policy.
And maybe just gentle reminders every time the season changes.
Yep.
Because I know I closed a door one time and the coach was
Not
really
happy.
not happy with me.
Yeah, I agree.
The only other thing we probably need to look at and think about is, you know, we're setting this policy, or I mean, I guess unless we make sure we come back to this policy, you know, this fall or this summer probably, to look at how it relates to the new facilities that we're opening
I
and
thought about that
how
too.
are we gonna handle use of those because,
Yeah.
just the nature of the equipment and stuff that
Sure.
we're putting in there and,
Well, and the costs might be different too.
yeah.
Yeah, great point, and I'm happy to say that a lot of that was considered, and you were part of the planning, even, for example, in how the auditorium is set up in the various areas, the black box, multipurpose room area in the back versus the auditorium in the front. One doesn't give you automatic access to all the
No,
way through.
we, in the
Yeah.
design, it was set up to
Yeah.
help accomplish that part.
Right. And probably, building a brand-new school building these days, those are the kinds of things that would be thought through. And we're retroactively finding opportunities to put those things in place. But I agree, when the facilities are open and being utilized, it'd be a good time to review that and even learn from it, even learn from what we've done and how that can be applied in our planning going forward.
Any other discussion? Okay. 7.06, employee request for other paid or unpaid leave. And per Iowa code, let's see, 21.51A, closed session is appropriate to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential. So with that, can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel. Yes. Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes. And we will be in closed session. we'll go to comments and suggestions. This is the second time during our agenda that anyone can address the board who's sitting in the audience or who wants to type something online. Hearing none? Okay. We'll go on to action items. 9.01 SBRC application, which will have 4 motions. So the first motion,
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $1,464.92 for excess LEP costs for serving English language learners for a limited English instruction program during the 2020-2021 school year.
And we had a second. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wylage,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins? Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. For motion number 2,
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $134,422.20 due to the increase in certified enrollment for the prior year.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes.
Madam
Vote
Chairwoman.
Number 3.
Like,
Yes.
make a motion to approve the request for the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $390,459.20 for open enrollment out students who are not included in the district's previous year certified enrollment count.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins? Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. And motion number 4,
Madam Chairwoman.
Mr. Hendricks.
A request to the School Budget Review Committee for a modified supplemental amount of $27,679.41 related to the English language learning program for students who have exceeded 5 years of waiting and that are included on the fall 2021 certified enrollment head count.
Second.
Any discussion?
That's all right.
Vote, please.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.02, adult meal prices.
Madam Chairwoman.
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve setting the adult lunch price at $3.95 as of January 1st, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.03, 900 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the second read.
Madam Chairwoman.
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve policies currently included in the 900 and 800 series and all accompanying regulations and exhibit as presented on the second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.04, 1000 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the second read.
Madam Chairwoman.
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve policies currently included in the 1001 and 1002 series and all accompanying regulations and exhibits as presented on the second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle?
Yes. 9.05, final 1000 series policy reviews, updates, and IASB alignments on the first read.
Madam Chairwoman.
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the policies currently included in the 1000 series 900 series as presented and all accompanying regulations and exhibits as presented for this first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? So when we do a second read on this, there's gonna be like balloons fall down and things like that? Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes. 9.06, employee requests for other paid or unpaid leave.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the employee request as presented in closed session.
Second.
any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge,
Just so everybody knows, this was not an easy decision, but no.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
No.
Mrs. Shuffle.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
And we have, the next board meeting will be, regular board meeting will be December 6th. This week is IASB conference. And so, the board members who are going, I know, usually we have supper on Wednesday night. You won't be able to make it.
Unless you do a really late supper, and I don't want you to wait for me, so.
Okay. And so, I guess we'll just, Jen said she wouldn't be available, so we'll just talk amongst us who's going to be there, and we'll see what we can arrange. I'll probably just text everyone and see what the preference is, because getting a reservation at a decent time, I don't know if that would affect it right now. I mean,
I think in all honesty, the restaurants around there are pretty geared up for knowing when there's conferences and
Right.
such. We never really have much of a problem if we're there for a
Okay.
conference, we get a run. But I did want to say before the night, to introduce to everyone, our huge audience here, of
Yes.
course. We have Ms. Erin Peterson, who will be joining the board on December the 6th. And she's sitting in tonight to observe and also participating in the IASB conference and going to the pre-conference where there's some sessions for new board members. So
Right.
we appreciate her diving right in and look forward to working with her beginning December 6th.
okay, sounds good. Anything else? Next board meeting will be on the 6th. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? You can stay, I guess. So, have a good night.